What I'd say to people is this is the future. The future is diverse voices sharing diverse stories to people all over the world outside of your home market. And too often authors get obsessed with selling in the local bookstore down the road, whereas they should be thinking about this global environment. So I think that, to me, is the biggest trend. It's the growth outside of the established markets of US, UK, Canada, Australia. Those markets are pretty big, whereas the rest of the world is just getting started.
Writing a book is not just a way to transform the lives of many people, but also a way to create financial freedom and leave a legacy. Wouldn't you want to find out just how to do that? Well, that's what this show is all about.
Hi, I'm Hennika Watkis Porter, speaker, coach, author of Podcast Power, and the host of the Entrepreneurial You podcast, inviting you to listen to the Authorpreneur Secrets podcast, brought to you by C. Ruth Taylor, best-selling indie author and the Caribbean's most trusted voice on entrepreneurship. Tune in for inspiration, information, and innovation to write and win with books. Get ready to dominate entrepreneurship.
Greetings, entrepreneurs. Welcome to another episode of the Authorpreneur Secrets podcast. I'm your host, C. Ruth Taylor, and this is episode 18 of the podcast. Coming up in today's show, we're going to be having an interview with one of my favorite podcasters and the person I consider to be my mentor in the publishing industry, Joanna Penn herself. She is an award-winning New York Times and USA Today best-selling thriller author. She is the host of my favorite podcast, the Creative Penn Podcast. She is also an award-winning entrepreneur. And this is somebody that the Caribbean authors and authors in the Caribbean diaspora need to get to know. She has a wealth of resources that will help you on your journey to becoming a successful author. Her website, The Creative Penn, has been voted in the top 100 sites for writers by Writer's Digest. And in our interview, she's going to be talking about the independent publishing space and what we as authors can do to become successful. And I believe I could dub this interview the Successful Indie Author Mindset, similar to one of our books, The Successful Author Mindset. So I can't wait to get into that interview with you. But first, let's have a word from our sponsor, Frame Art Jamaica Limited.
Come to Frame Art Jamaica Limited for your one-stop framing, graphic design, and printing needs. We frame photos, certificates, paintings, t-shirts, and so much more. You can also get high-quality prints and framing done in a quick turnaround time to fit your budget. Visit Frame Art Jamaica at 22C Old Hope Road, Kingston 5, weekdays 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Call us at 876-929-3058 or visit us at info@frameartjamaica.com. Serving you for over 30 years.
Along with being one of the most trusted voices in the industry, Joanna has sold 600,000 books in 162 countries in 5 languages. And she is also an author of nonfiction books. And I just want to say it is such an awesome privilege to have Joanna on the show. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Joanna.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Ruth. And I'm really thrilled to be talking to you. And I should just say to people that I've been doing this now for almost 15 years. So, I didn't just do this last week. If that encourages people, the writing career is just a little bit every day over time. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Joanna. We know that success is not overnight. And before I get into the interview, I want to pay you tribute. I can say more than 70% of what I know in the publishing industry is because of you, your books, and especially your podcast. I have been listening to your podcast every week. If a week goes by and I don't listen, I'm like, did you listen to the Creative Penn podcast? And so I want to thank you for sticking and staying with this. You've been podcasting for a long time. And it is because of you why I can do what I'm doing and enable Caribbean authors to win with books, because it is still very much day one for us. And I just want to say as well, we all need mentors along the journey. And for you, it was Yara Stark helping you to go further in your career as an author and an author entrepreneur. And for me, it is you. I have listened to you. I have watched you. I take your advice, and I want to say thank you for what you are doing for authors.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And I bet you're doing it for other people too. And that is what we do, right? We pass it on, and we like helping other people while we still write our books. And I know you've written a ton of books as well. So I'm just as excited to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. I often say I want to be the Joanna Penn for the Caribbean. So this is quite an honor. But let's get into it, Joanna. Have you ever been to Jamaica or any Caribbean island? And what was that like?
I have not, and it is on my list. Absolutely. I lived in Malawi. I went to school in Malawi in Africa. I've lived all over Europe. I've lived in Australia and New Zealand and visited north of America, but I have not come to your area of the world, which I definitely must rectify at some point.
Definitely. And because I'm Jamaican, I'm biased. So we're going to get you to Jamaica, have you eat some jerk chicken and visit some of our beaches.
Although I've got to say, I lived just down the road from Brixton in London. So I have had the good jerk chicken. We have obviously we have a big Caribbean diaspora community here in the UK. I'm just down the road from Bristol, where we have a lot of people as well. So my Caribbean culture, I think, comes from here in the UK. I'm sure some people listening have family over here at some point.
Definitely. My sister has just moved to London, so she's a little bit closer to you. All right. So tell us about your author journey. What led you into writing? How did all of that begin?
Well, I used to work as an IT consultant. I used to implement accounts payable, and so I was working in a mining company, the last company I worked for. And I was, I had the job, did the responsible thing, but I was just miserable. I just wasn't happy in my career. And so I started to study a lot of self-help. I know you do that too. Wanted to figure out how to be happy in my life, like many of us do. And so I started reading. I've always been a big reader, and I thought, well, I know I'll write a self-help book on career change, and I will get a publishing deal, and I'll make loads of money, and I'll be a speaker, and it'll be awesome. And in the process of writing that book, I discovered a lot more about the publishing industry. And this was before the Kindle, before the Apple iPhone, for example, before a lot of this online stuff happened. There was Skype, but there wasn't Zoom and all this. It was the early days of Facebook. And so in writing that book, I then discovered that the publishing industry, and I think similarly in the Caribbean, the publishing industry was not very open. It was going to be very difficult and take a very long time to get into that. So I was like, well, I can do this myself. I'm a businesswoman. I like doing things. I will figure this out. And so I did self-publish that first book back in 2008. And in the process of doing that, I learned a lot in that I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know how to sell books. So I started learning. And again, like you, I started a blog, The Creative Penn, started a podcast, sharing everything I learned along the way. And basically, I've continued to do that while writing. I started writing fiction soon after. And so now I have thrillers and nonfiction and dark fantasy and a whole load of other things. So and then I left my job. I should probably say I left my job in 2011. So it's been 10 years as we speak, almost exactly 10 years since I left my job. And for the first few years, I didn't make much money. way. I mean, as you know, it's not an easy business, regardless of where you live. But then I started to do better, make more money, and yeah, things have really taken off. So as you said, I have a lot of books now. I have sort of 35 books, an established podcast, an established brand, but it's all taken time. So if you want to make a career at this, you certainly can. And even if you don't want to, maybe you just want to write that one book and, you know, hold that in your hand or give it to your family or whatever, which is what a lot of people want, then that is absolutely brilliant too. And so I encourage everyone to write. But for me, it was definitely something I'd always wanted to do and just took it into my own hands, I guess.
Now, as you touched on taking it into your own hands, why independently published? Why self-published and not traditional publishing? Why did you do that? Because in 2008, most persons weren't thinking of self-publishing. I know you're always an early starter, but share with our audience why.
Well, I think one thing is I'm not very patient, and to get an agent and a publishing deal and to then see the book on the shelf, it can take 6 months, it can take 2 years, it can take 5 years. And I was like, no, I am not doing it that way. Also, they only want certain types of books by certain kinds of people, which I think I didn't really like that idea. At the time, the books they were publishing in the career change niche, the big books at the time, Tim Ferriss' 4 Hour Work Week came out around then, Gary Vaynerchuk, these sort of big A-list American men. And I was just some, British chick living in Australia who didn't really have any kind of platform. And so I learned about this stuff. But so one was the speed. The second thing was I'm not waiting around for that, and I can learn to do it myself. I've always been a sort of, you can do this yourself and then fail badly. That's fine. I'll learn how to do it better next time. So that, and also I was doing nonfiction and I was surrounded by speakers. And as you know, if you're a speaker, if you can speak even at a church, a church hall, or you can speak at a business event, you can sell books at the back of the room, or you can include it in your speaker's fee. So speakers have always self-published and sold books at the back of the room. But the difference is, if you want your book in a physical bookstore in a particular place, that's going to be more difficult. But then also what happened, 2008, 2010, those first years, what happened was the Kindle and the launch of ebooks and then digital audio. And I discovered, as I was living in Australia, that I could reach the American market, the USA reading audience, the biggest reading audience in the world. And I could publish online and I could sell books to them. And that is still my primary market. So I want to encourage people listening, you're not selling to people in Jamaica. I mean, yeah, sure, you can. But what's the population of Jamaica?
We're about 2.8 million.
Okay, 2.8 million. Whereas America, the USA, is about 600 million. I think it's about 600 million. And I was in Australia, it's about 25 million. So 10 times as big as Jamaica, but nothing like the USA. Here in the UK, we're about 68 million. So again, and then if you think about English speakers across the world, this is a huge audience. There's more English speakers in Nigeria, in India, in Pakistan than there are here in the UK. So you have to think, okay, how can I reach people online? So when I discovered that you could publish a book, an ebook, and you could sell books all over the world, that's what changed my whole future. I was like, I've got it now. And so I don't market very much locally. No one in Bath would know who I am. Whereas what I do is market online in order to reach a global audience. So yes, absolutely, print your books and sell them locally to your local bookstore if you can, or in your local area. But think that the world is your market, and that's very exciting.
Wow, I love that. You've touched on a very important point there in terms of one of the benefits of self-publishing, publishing independently, is your ability to reach a global market easier. We said in the beginning that you've sold books in 162 countries. And you don't need anybody's permission to do that.
Yeah, this is really important, because if you sign a publishing contract, and I don't have anything against traditional publishing, but when you sign a contract, you have to look at it and see what they're offering. So, if a publisher in Jamaica offers you a publishing contract, are they actually going to publish your book in 163 countries? They probably aren't. They may do some print runs in Jamaica. I don't know where else, the other islands, but are they going to have your book available in these other places? So this is a really big deal now, is thinking about your world rights. And then in terms of marketing, I haven't been to all those countries, but what happens is I do online marketing. So I have a podcast, I have a blog, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, and people all over the world find you. So you found me. How did you find me? Online, on the podcast? I don't know. How did you find me?
I found you while searching for information on self-publishing.
There you go. You did a Google search, and I popped up. And this is the other thing, right? Okay, so you searched online, I popped up. I bet you other people popped up too. And you had a look around, and then you were like, oh, I'll listen to her. I'll give her a try. And maybe you tried some other people and they weren't for you. And this happened. This is really important. And I want to encourage people listening too. This is human nature. We will click on a link and we'll be like, no, not my thing. And we click on another link and we're like, yeah, I like her. I like what she's saying. And so if you feel, you, the listener, and that other people have written these books before or said these things before, it doesn't matter. There's always room for another book or another voice from another angle, from another direction. And some people are going to, come to you, Ruth, and go, yes, I want your information rather than mine, for example. And this is so super important, that we feel that we can still talk about the same types of things, but from a different perspective, from a different country, from a different angle. This type of thing is just so important.
That's a very good point, because even in this space, sometimes I'm like, but somebody else is doing what I am doing. So, does it really matter? Should there be another author podcast when you have, thanks to you, the self-publishing show? I've been introduced to them, 6-figure authors. You have Ally with its own podcast. You're an advisor to Ally. So, your voice is different and you connect with different persons. So when you restrict your publishing just to a few countries or make your books available just on one platform, then you are robbing others or preventing others from connecting with you, because, we connect differently with persons. But you said you have a podcast, you are doing blogging. Part of the struggle I have with authors, the authors I work with and others, is that all they want to do is write. And so they come even with self-publishing. Authors in the Caribbean, when we say publish, we're not talking about getting a traditional deal. We're thinking of somebody that we're going to pay to get the work done. And they want as little input as possible. Now, when I am going to tell them no, that you need to publish wide and you need to make your materials available in many places, and they don't want to do the work, we have a problem. So what's your answer for that, for those who just want to write and not getting to all of like what you do to make it work for you?
Yes. So what I say to people, because I get people email me every day and they ask me the same things. They'll be like, oh, I know, I don't mean to ask you this, but can you please read my manuscript and publish it for me? And I'm like, no, I just delete that email because they clearly haven't even looked at my website. So I have a free ebook, Successful Self-Publishing. And the reason I did that was because of all these emails I get. So if someone emails me like that, I say, here's the free ebook. This is the information. I'm not, just go read that and do it. And if they say, well, I don't want that, I want someone to do it for me, then I say, okay, well, maybe consider a traditional publishing deal, because it's like, it depends what you want. So that's the question people have to ask, and people listening, that's what you have to decide. So as I said earlier, some people, they just have a story, right? Like there's a large group of people who, for example, want to write the memoir of their grandfather who came over to the UK back in the 60s or whatever, and then came back to Jamaica and started whatever. So they just want to write one story. And for those people, it's like, okay, here's how we do print on demand. Off you go. They don't need to do marketing. They don't need to publish wide, put their book in every country in the world. Why bother? That's not what they want. So that's a large proportion of people who want to write. Then there's another group who say, actually, I would like to make some money, please. And those are the people you say, okay, if you want to make some money, there are a few things you need to do. For example, you have to learn how to market your book. And here's the resources that I have. And you have to write more than one book. This is a terrible truth that people don't want to hear. I didn't want to hear it at the beginning. It's like, I'm sorry, but if you want to make some money, you need to write more than one book. If you look at the highest earning authors in the world, they have more than one book. James Patterson, Stephen King, Nora Roberts, these people have more than one book. And that's what we have to think. And that's why you have more than one book, right? We know that each book doesn't make tons of money, but when you have lots of books, each book adds up and then you can make some more money. So what you have to say, and authors listening, you have to decide, what do I want? And then how can I achieve it? And for me personally, when I started writing, I wanted to leave my job. I wanted to stop being an IT consultant and become an author. But I'm not just an author, as you said, and same as you. I'm an author, but I'm also a podcaster. I make good money with my podcasts. I'm also a speaker. I have courses. So all of these things bring money in. And that's, again, a sort of another level, which is where you've taken it, of services and other things helping people. So what you have to do with the authors who come to you is they have to decide where they go. Maybe even on your website, like I do, you have, here's the free book. Or if you want to just do this, here's the answer. If you want to do this, here's the answer. Because the truth is, you can't help everyone. You're not responsible for their success. They are responsible for their success. So they have to decide. And I'm always surprised. Like someone's emailed me before and they're like, I'm 80 years old and I need help with this. And I've emailed back and I've probably been a bit patronizing, and I've been like, oh, you don't need to build an author platform. You don't need to do all this stuff. And they're like, hell no, I want to do all that. I'm 80 and I'm on the metaverse and I'm on Facebook and I'm doing all the stuff. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. And then you'll get a 21-year-old who's not interested whatsoever. So it's not about age. It's not about where you live. It's about what you want to achieve with your work and how far you want to take it, I guess.
Wow, you just touched it, because I was reluctant to help persons at first. So I was publishing my own books and it was fine. But when it gets to the editing, and the first 4 books, I literally cried when I had to self-edit. I mean, literally, and just going through the process, and it was difficult. But when I saw what was happening to others, some of them were overpriced and they weren't getting the services that they should get. My friends appealed to me and I said, yes. Majority want somebody to do it for them. So I know of like some premium services, I will do that. But I started my academy for those who want to learn and they just want a guide. So you saying, you can't help everybody, and you need to have on your website, if this is what you need, go here. And if this is what you need, do that. So that's like music to my ears.
Yeah. And on that, what you can do is what I've done, which is affiliate relationships with companies. So, and there are international companies that will work with authors from the Caribbean or wherever. And you can say, okay, this is a company that I trust, I'm going to work with. You know, the Alliance of Independent Authors has a list of partner members and this type of thing. You can be like, okay, and when you do, if you want this, go here. If you want this, go here. You refer to other services. So editing, for example, you know, Pro Writing Aid, I've got, you know, I'm an affiliate of Pro Writing Aid. And and this is how I've got rid of that issue. And I know the issue. I used to do consulting for people back in the day. It's very hard, but you have to be really clear with yourself what you just said. I don't want to do that for people. Well, then it won't be fun for you and it will be just miserable. And I completely get it. But you have to think about your higher purpose and how many more people you can help by, you know, maybe teaching your course online as well as in person, or doing these other different things. And look, you know, some people will go away and never listen to you again, but some people will stick around, and they're the people who love your work.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joanna. No, let's segue a little bit in terms of, for those who want it to work, you're a successful independent author. What are some of the tips? Because I don't think this is for everybody, but for those who want it to work and want to continue publishing independently, what are the tips to make it work?
Yes, so I think a really important tip, we mentioned it before, is that you need to write more than one book. And this is regardless of the genre. So if you write fiction, then a series is great. Again, the best-selling authors have series. Generally, I say generally, like someone like Stephen King has not really done series, but he's in horror. Whereas, you know, James Patterson, Nora Roberts, you know, these people have really long running series, and series are easier to write. And if readers find one book, then they will hopefully buy more. So you've said you've bought a number of my nonfiction books, and they're in a series too. So I can see some of your books there, and it looks like this sort of the green top and bottom and the gold, and then the picture of the people. It looks like a series. So series branding is a really good idea. And then your target market are like, yes, that's what I want. And that's true for fiction or nonfiction. Nonfiction is multiple books aimed at the same niche. So many of us start writing because we're like, oh, I've got this thing burning on my heart, and you almost need to get that one written and out the way so that you can then think, what do you want for the rest of it? And then you can consider the business side. So yes, writing a series is important. What I mentioned at the beginning, the kind of long-term approach, the long-term mindset, which is, unfortunately, you are very, very unlikely to make $1 million from your first book in your first year. You may well make $1 million over the next 25 years if you add it all up and if you write lots of books. But look, you know, if you want to get rich quick, there are much easier ways of doing it than writing a book. I feel like authors have a very wrong idea of the money that is in this space. Yes, you can make a living, but you know, it's not like a lot of other things, and it is hard. You mentioned it's hard, but it's so rewarding. And I think if you're a book person, if you love reading and you love books, this is just a fantastic career. But yeah, the long-term thinking, multiple books, and also other multiple streams of income. And for most people, that is a day job. So most authors have a job and then they write on the side. Some people call it a side hustle or whatever. But for you, you know, you have the teaching, for example. I have the podcast, I have courses, that type of thing, as well as the books. So don't think that you're going to make a full-time income out of fiction in a year. I think that would be my main thing, is to think about these different aspects. But if you love writing, then writing a lot of books ends up being the best thing ever, and you get the bug. And if you get the bug, then you've got the bug, haven't you? Right? I'm just going to write another book.
Yeah, I have the bug, and it doesn't matter if it is sold. As you talk about the bug, I don't know. I don't know what has happened after writing 20 books. When I did this one, I got it in hardcover, Write and Retire Right. I was giddy. This is my first hardcover version. And I couldn't understand it. I was ecstatic. You would think I got married or somebody just gave me $1 million. When I held it, I mean, I felt like an author. And this is after 20 books. And I have books, they haven't been sold, but I like writing. I like putting the content out there, whether anybody buys it or not. That's just it for me. Joanna, you just made some excellent points there. Writing series, write more than one books, and think long term. And you just have to do what it takes. And so as we bring this interview to a close, I have about 2 more questions. And I mean, you inspire me. You went from nonfiction to fiction. How did you do that? I love nonfiction. It's easy. I tend to write more memoirish kind of books and inspirational books. But what does it take to cross the threshold? Is it a natural thing? Can everybody just go to fiction? What did you do? Because I know at one stage you didn't think you could do it. So how do we make the transition nonfiction to fiction?
Well, first of all, you have to read a lot of fiction. So people who say, oh, I want to write a novel, but I don't read fiction. I'm like, I don't know how people can do that. It's like, I imagine you read a lot of self-help and inspirational and memoir, and you know, what you read is what you love. And so that's what you want to write. So that's really important. You must read the fiction genre that you want to write. Then it's a case of you actually have to learn how to do it. Now, as you said, it is easy in inverted commas to write nonfiction. You just take what's in your head and you like, I want to help people with this. And you write down everything you know, and you do some research and you structure it and you edit it and you've got a book. It is reasonably easy. With fiction, you have to learn skills that you don't know. So for example, dialogue is a skill. You know, there's a reason screenwriters are quite highly paid. It's because it's all, you know, dialogue. Story structure, there is almost a science to storytelling, and I've had obviously lots of interviews on my show about various aspects of storytelling, but the good news is you can learn how to do this. So if people are like, yeah, I want to write a novel, then you can learn how to do it. And then you just have to try. This is the other thing. And the longer you wait, the harder it's going to get, because you'll be like, oh, it'll just be that's too hard. I'll just write another nonfiction. Well, what you have to do is actually put aside some time. So you have to say, okay, that time is for my novel. And I know that I could achieve more in that time if I just let myself write another nonfiction book, but I really want to do this. You know, I feel like the pandemic has made us all think about what happens when we die. You know, I want to do this before I die. So if you want to write a novel before you die, then you better get on with it, you know. So you can learn how to do characters, you can learn how to do plot, you can learn about setting and world building, and it's all super fun. Yeah, you know, if you enjoy learning and you enjoy reading, you can write a novel. It's going to take a bit longer. Then what happens? So that first novel took me about 16 months or something. But what I did was I enrolled in a local college and I learned all these things. Now there's a lot more courses online you can do. I've got one on how to write a novel. But you can go as deep as you like. Another good one is the masterclass.com. James Patterson's on there, Neil Gaiman, Shonda Rhimes, who, you know, she's more in TV, but that's storytelling, right? So what you've got to think about is I need to set aside some time for a new skill, learning a new skill, and that's telling a story. And the exciting thing I think about fiction is you can communicate your meaning and your beliefs and your what you want to help people with through story, which can also change people's lives. And I think that can be another way. You can write a non-fiction book on being an empowered woman, for example. You can also write a novel about a woman who discovers her power and her strengths through, for example, for me, through learning that she has the power to walk through maps and destroy the evil ones and things like that. And it can be super fun, but you can also bring your meaning into it in a different way. People write for the audience that they care about. So that would be my main thing is, do you really want to do it? If you do, set aside the time and understand you have to learn new skills.
Wow, that is so helpful. Understand that it's a new skill. And like Brian Tracy would say, all skills are learnable.
Yes.
And yeah, the truth is, when I was younger, I used to read a lot of romance. Mills and Boons and
yes, fantastic.
Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew.
I love the Hardy Boys.
Chronicles of Narnia. So you talk about some of the courses you have, and that you even have a course on novel writing, and this is a skill that we can learn. So I'm just going to take a moment and point persons to your website, that lovely website, The Creative Pen, and that's pen with a double N. The Creative Pen, and I'm going to show them some of your books and invite them to get them. So you see, she has an entire collection of non-fiction for authors. It's a series of about 15 books along with some workbooks. I have gotten most of the audio for these books. So you have the Successful Self-Publishing, How to Market a Book, How to Make a Living with Your Writing, and there are different editions of that. The Author Business Plan, How to Write Nonfiction, The Successful Author Mindset, Productivity, Audio for Authors, which I got as well. The Relaxed Author is a new book that she has coming out, so you'll be able to pre-order that. She's co-writing that with Mark Leslie Lefebvre. The Healthy Writer. No, that got me exercising again. Business for Authors, co-writing a book. I did co-write a book. I didn't buy this one, but listening to the episode on it helped me. I haven't bought the artificial intelligence one or the public speaking one or career change, but I've gotten most of those. And then now, in terms of our resources, the courses, because Joanna believes in multiple streams of income, just like me, with your books. So these are some of our courses: how to write a novel, how to write nonfiction, turn your words into knowledge, multiple streams of income from your writing. I love those, and you can do the course. And the courses are affordable. So I want to recommend highly thecreativepen.com and her resources. And whether it's fiction or nonfiction, go there. She also has another podcast, which is Books and Travel, for her fiction brand. Those are some of the resources that Joanna has. And I want to ask her one final question and bring this interview to a close. Yes, Joanna, you are good at reading trends. So what do you see as the future of independent publishing, self-publishing, and how can we in the Caribbean capitalize on that, since it's still day one for us?
Yeah, well, I think you guys are in a fantastic position, because what's happening is a extensive fragmentation of the media landscape. So it used to be that X book, this book is the book, or these 10 books, everyone's reading these 10 books or watching this one TV show or whatever. But now what's happened is very fragmented in the media landscape, and it is global and it is digital, and all of these things have been accelerated by the pandemic. So what is exciting now? I mean, it used to be, let's say 10 years ago, if you were an author in Jamaica, yeah, sure, you might publish your book in Jamaica, but that would be it. But now, as we were talking about, you can publish a book as a Jamaican author, and it can be read by anyone in the world on their mobile phone. And most the numbers of people with mobile phones now, and it's getting more and more all the time. The internet is almost everywhere in the world, and people can read on a cell phone. and you can receive income from all these places. So what I would say in terms of the future for Jamaican authors is you just need to, as I did, look at the countries that are a bit ahead of you. So as I was telling you before we started recording, I recently did a conference, online conference for Italian self-publishers, for French self-publishers, and most countries have not even started the digital revolution yet. So you might look at the US and say, oh, well, all of this has been done. Well, it hasn't been for most of the world. And this is very exciting. So I would say what you need to be doing is looking at the trends of what is already happening in a country like the US, where a lot of people buying digital audio, for example. So, and this is a lovely trend as well, is that people want diverse voices in writing. So people want more Black authors, for example. But of course, Black author or author of color, that is practically meaningless. I mean, your speaking voice as a Jamaican woman is completely different to, an African American from New Orleans, for example, or a Ugandan man. And what's interesting now is we're looking at diversity of written voices, but also diversity of speaking voices. Now, I love your accent. And what's so funny is people listen to me. I mean, I'm just another British girl, white British girl, and yet people listen to me because of my voice. They enjoy listening to my English female voice. So the same for you. You might consider narrating your audiobooks, for example. I don't know if you've already done that. Have you done that already?
I have started. I did one myself, and now I have a technician mastering it. It's Penny to win it, and somebody else is doing Write and Retire Right.
Right, because I think the value of sharing your particularly nonfiction in your own voice is so brilliant, especially if you have a voice brand, which you do with a podcast. You develop a voice brand and people are like, I love listening to you and I want to hear your book in your voice. And again, it's hard work. You have to learn how to narrate an audiobook. But what I'd say to people is this is the future. The future is diverse voices sharing diverse stories to people all over the world outside of your home market. And too often authors get obsessed with selling in the local bookstore down the road, whereas they should be thinking about this global environment. So I think that, to me, is the biggest trend. It's the growth outside of the established markets of US, UK, Canada, Australia. Those markets are pretty big, whereas the rest of the world is just getting started. So yeah, that's what I would say. Of course, ebooks, digital audio, and then with print on demand, we can reach more and more people with print books. Obviously, I think the Caribbean's focusing first on print, but yeah, I do think that print on demand obviously is very important, but considering that digital market, that global market, the market on mobile phones is incredible. And yeah, as I said, I also think the publishing industry has controlled the narratives and the stories for so long that people need the confidence to feel that they can write whatever they want from whatever perspective they're living in, and that is valuable and that can reach people in the rest of the world. So you don't need to write a romance like Nora Roberts. You can write a romance like Ruth, like Ruth Taylor, or you can write a thriller like J.F. Penn. And that is still just as valuable. Sure, you might not make as much money as James Patterson, but your voice is out there and it will be discovered. So yeah, I think there's even a hashtag on Twitter called #OwnVoices, and it's very much a movement that's trying to just encourage people to write what they love from their perspective, without trying to fit into the way the publishing industry has always tried to do things. So I hope that encourages people. But there is I've never read a thriller set in Jamaica. apart from, I think, didn't Ian Fleming have a place in Jamaica and set some James Bond there?
Yes, he wrote James Bond. Yeah, here.
Yeah, but okay, so that's a rich white guy writing James Bond, right, in Jamaica. So someone recommend me a Jamaican, a proper Jamaican thriller, and that would be so interesting to read these different things.
Right, and that's good. And we have authors who are winning awards. I think Marlon James.
Oh,
he won,
Marlon James, yes.
I think the Booker Prize.
The Booker Prize, yes.
And he's Jamaican, and the setting was based on us. But I understand a move about Read Caribbean. It's about telling our stories. So this is a good way to end, because this is my mission, to gather the stories from across the developing countries and to share them. I've started something called Untold Stories, and I published the first book in that series, and that is the vision. It's time to write and tell our stories and change the narrative. So,
brilliant.
Joanna, I've introduced people to your website, but where else can people find you and just learn about all you do, apart from the creativepen.com?
Sure. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel called The Creative Pen with a double N, or of course my podcast is on all the podcast apps. So those are probably the best places for people to check out, and on Twitter at The Creative Pen with a double N, probably the best places.
Thank you. This has been a dream come true, and it was great having you. Thank you, Joanna. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ruth.
All right. So I trust that you enjoyed that interview. Joanna shared so many tips. And one of the big things that she spoke about is you have to decide what you want. Is it that you just want to publish a book and that is just a dream realized, or do you want to actually make money with your books? And depending on what you decide, that will determine the approach you take and whether you market your books or not. And so we want to thank Joanna for coming and sharing her wealth of experience and those tips with us. It was truly an honor, and I feel super grateful. Now, my authorpreneurship ventures. What am I up to next with my books? Well, the authorpreneurship venture today has to do with my book, The Rocket Writer. So the Rocket Writer is free on my website, extramileja.com or authorpreneursecrets.com. It is a book that teaches you how to write a nonfiction book in 24 hours. Now, I know you can also do that with fiction books, and I've always written fast. It tells the story of how I wrote my 20 books in 1 year. And I am putting together a Rocket Writer series that not only teaches you how to write fast, it is also going to teach you how to leverage your book to create a business or a ministry or some product, a course, and other things in 24 hours. So it's a 3-part series, and it's just $19.99 for each masterclass in the series. And it begins September 9 on a Thursday. That's at 6:30 p.m. Central. It's going to be on Zoom. So you just go to extramileja.com/Rocket Writer series, and you're going to see the information. So you're going to convert your expertise, experience, knowledge, and skills into a book, or it could even be a children's book. So come and find out more about that. First masterclass is idea to book in 24 hours. The second one is book to course in 24 hours. And I have turned my books into profitable courses in 24 hours or less. So I'm going to reveal that strategy, because this is another income stream and another way that you can sell your book effortlessly. And the third one is book to ministry or business in 24 hours. So in that, you're going to discover the secrets. What are the steps that I use to convert my book to a new ministry opportunity or a new business opportunity, a new product or service that is profitable? And I'm going to share with you 10 services that you could start in 24 hours with a book. So look for the link in the show notes. That's my latest authorpreneurship venture. And this is an episode that you want to go back, an interview that you want to go back and listen to from time to time. So I want to thank you for listening. Share this episode with a friend, subscribe on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also sharing on YouTube. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, and thank you so much. And remember, go and get Joanna's resources. Listen to her podcast, buy her books like me. I have audio and Kindle versions. Go to thecreativepen.com and get the information. There are over 500 episodes there to help you on whatever stage you are on your author journey, whether you are a nonfiction author or a fiction author. Yeah, as we close out the show, just want to remind you to take charge of your publishing. Go pen it to win it and dominate authorpreneurship. Ta for now, until next time.
I'm Tamara Francis, educator and editor. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share the podcast with your network. If you'd like to increase your impact and income with books, visit authorpreneursecrets.com for more resources, including the books Pen It to Win It and Authorpreneur Secrets. Join the Authorpreneur Secrets Academy membership group for courses, coaching, and community support to write, publish, and win with books. Enrollment is in January and June each year. You may also sign up for one of Ruth's Publishing Made Easy courses or private coaching to write and publish your next book. Until next time, go pen it to win it.